We must defend the truth at all costs, even if we return to being only 12. Saint John Paul II.
Have you ever stopped to think about what led ordinary men to leave everything behind and follow Jesus to the end, even when that end was death? The story of the 12 apostles is not just about faith. It's about courage, sacrifice, and in many cases, brutal martyrdom. Contrary to what many believe, Christianity didn't spread through easy victories or social favors. It was upheld by the blood and determination of men who preferred death over renouncing their faith. This brings us to an intriguing point. Why would someone surrender to such a cruel fate in the name of a belief? If you're curious to understand how these first followers of Christ lived and died, prepare yourself for a journey through the darkest and most heroic moments in Christian history. In this video, you'll discover surprising details about how the apostles faced the worst tortures and unimaginable deaths, and yet remained firm. What was the secret to their unwavering strength? Stay until the end, because this answer might change your perspective on what it really means to have faith. Saint Peter. Saint Peter, the leader of the 12 apostles, carries a story of humility and courage that echoes to this day. Known for being impulsive and fervent, he was chosen by Christ to be the rock upon which the Catholic Church would be built. This choice was no accident. Even after denying Jesus 3 times, he showed deep and transformative repentance, preparing him to lead the nascent Christian faith. Peter teaches us that even in the face of our failures, we can rise stronger and with more purpose, becoming living witnesses of divine mercy. His martyrdom reflects the depth of his faith. During Nero's reign, Peter was imprisoned and sentenced to death, preaching the gospel. In a final act of humility, he requested to be crucified upside down, as he didn't consider himself worthy to die in the same manner as Christ. This extreme gesture of total surrender is a powerful lesson about self-denial and sacrifice in the name of faith. Today, we can be inspired to reflect on how we are living our faith. Are we willing to face challenges for what we believe in? When we look at the figure of Saint Peter, we realize he was someone just like any of us, full of doubts, mistakes, and limitations. Yet, he was able to turn his weaknesses into an overwhelming strength to spread early Christianity. How about doing the same? Even in a world that's increasingly secularized, we can mirror this example of unshakable faith, and just like him, remain steadfast, regardless of the obstacles life throws our way. Now let's understand how Peter's brother, Saint Andrew, also fully embraced the mission entrusted to him. Saint Andrew, the brother of Saint Peter and the first of the 12 apostles to be called by Jesus, lived a life marked by simplicity and dedication. He was a humble fisherman who left everything behind upon hearing the Master's invitation to become a fisher of men. Throughout his life, he traveled to various regions, including Greece and Asia Minor, fervently preaching the gospel message. His example reminds us that no matter how ordinary our lives may seem, God can use us in extraordinary ways. We are willing to follow his call. Saint Andrew's martyrdom also carries deep symbolism. He was condemned to crucifixion on an X-shaped cross, a tool of death that, ironically, became a symbol of his unshakable faith. Even while tied to the cross, he continued preaching for 2 days with a serenity and inner strength that could only come from someone driven by genuine faith. This example invites us to reflect. When facing our own daily crosses, can we maintain our faith and hope as he did? Saint Andrew's story shows how he lived and died with unwavering faith, even in the face of the greatest adversity. His X-shaped cross, known as the Saint Andrew's Cross, is a reminder that total surrender to God can lead to inexplicable inner peace, even amidst suffering. This sacrifice prepares us to understand the story of Saint James the Greater, who, with the same courage, was the first among the apostles to face martyrdom. Saint James the Greater, brother of Saint John and one of the apostles closest to Jesus, stood out for his zeal and courage. Along with Peter and John, he formed Christ's inner circle, witnessing unique moments like the Transfiguration and the agony in Gethsemane. This apostle had such a strong temperament that Jesus called him and his brother the sons of thunder. However, his firmness and passion were channeled into the mission of evangelization, showing that when well directed, our natural impulses can become powerful tools for faith. The martyrdom of Saint James the Greater was one of the first great shocks for the early church. Around 44 AD, he was beheaded in Jerusalem by order of King Herod Agrippa. This moment deeply affected Christians because James was one of the most beloved and respected leaders. However, his death didn't mark the end, but instead became a testimony of faith that inspired many to persevere, even in the face of threats and persecution. He was the first of the 12 apostles to seal his faith with martyrdom, initiating the long list of Catholic martyrs who followed in his footsteps. The legacy of Saint James the Greater is so strong that centuries later, the pilgrimage route to Santiago de Compostela, where his remains are believed to be, became one of the greatest symbols of Christian spirituality. Thousands of faithful from all over the world walk the Camino de Santiago, seeking the same faith and courage that he demonstrated until the last moment. With that, we prepare to learn the story of James's brother, Saint John, who, though he had a different journey, was equally remarkable. Saint John, known as the beloved disciple, had a unique journey among the 12. He was the youngest of the group and, along with Peter and James the Greater, witnessed crucial moments alongside Jesus. He was the one who stood at the foot of the cross during the crucifixion, receiving from Christ the mission to care for Mary, the mother of Jesus. His closeness to the Master allowed him to write the Gospel of John, the letters of John, and the Book of Revelation, works that remain inexhaustible sources of spirituality and teaching. Saint John shows us that intimacy with God can yield abundant fruits, both in life and in the legacy left behind. Though he was the only one of the 12 apostles not to suffer martyrdom, this doesn't mean his life was free from suffering. Saint John faced numerous persecutions and was exiled to the island of Patmos, where he wrote Revelation. This exile reveals the strength of faith in the face of isolation and adversity. Even separated from his brothers in faith, John remained steadfast in his mission, conveying the hope and comfort of the gospel. It's believed that he lived until the age of 94, being one of the last living witnesses of early Christianity. How many of us, when faced with challenges and lonely moments, could be inspired by the patience and perseverance of this great apostle? Throughout his life, Saint John was an example of love and fidelity, both to Christ and to the Christian community. He lived to proclaim the commandment of love, always emphasizing the importance of unity among the faithful. His story teaches us that even if we are not called to physical martyrdom, we are challenged to live a daily spiritual martyrdom, placing love for God and others above all else. Now we turn our gaze to Saint James the Less, whose mission in Jerusalem was as impactful as his more well-known namesake. Saint James the Less. Saint James the Less, also known as James the son of Alphaeus, was a central figure in the early church and the first bishop of Jerusalem. Known for his deep piety and faithfulness, he played a crucial role in leading Jewish Christians in the years following Christ's resurrection. Renowned for his strict devotion to faith and dedication to prayer, James was respected even by non-Christians, showing the impact of a life lived with integrity in line with Jesus' teachings. He was a pillar for the early church, guiding it through times of uncertainty and persecution. The martyrdom of Saint James the Less is laden with symbolism and cruelty. Because of his strong leadership and preaching in Jerusalem, he was taken to the pinnacle of the temple and forced to renounce his faith in Jesus. When he refused, he was thrown from the top of the temple but survived the fall. Even while injured, he continued to testify his faith until he was beaten to death with a club. This example of perseverance invites us to reflect on how we deal with our own adversities. Do we maintain our faith even when the world seems to be against us? The testimony of Saint James the Less is a powerful reminder that in our Christian walk, we will be challenged to make courageous decisions, even when the consequence is suffering. He not only led the church with wisdom, but also remained steadfast to the end. Facing death, the same faith that guided him throughout his life. Now we move on to the story of Saint Philip, an apostle who, like James the Less, faced challenges and martyrdom while bringing the gospel to pagan lands. Saint Philip. Saint Philip, one of the 12 apostles, was known for his inquisitive nature and constant search for understanding divine truth. He was called by Jesus on the banks of the Jordan River and quickly became a fervent follower. Philip played a crucial role in spreading the gospel in regions like Greece and Phrygia, demonstrating tireless zeal in his ministry. One of the most memorable moments involving Philip was when he introduced Nathanael to Jesus, showcasing his ability to draw others to the faith. His example teaches us that sharing the truth requires both knowledge and a willingness to walk alongside others. The martyrdom of Saint Philip reflects his unshakable commitment to the mission he received. While preaching in the city of Hierapolis, he was captured after openly challenging the local authorities who practiced idolatry. As a result, he was condemned to be crucified upside down, enduring intense suffering that, rather than silencing him, served as an opportunity to continue proclaiming the gospel. The faith he demonstrated until the very end challenges us to consider: to what extent are we willing to face obstacles to bear witness to what we believe? Saint Philip's death, far from being a tragic end, became a powerful example: faithfulness to the extreme. His courage in standing against idolatry and injustice turned him into a model of perseverance for Christians. Even in the midst of his agony, found strength to proclaim his faith, leaving behind a legacy that continues to inspire the faithful to seek the truth with determination. Now let's explore the story of Saint Bartholomew, whose brutal martyrdom reveals yet another dimension of what it means to live a faith. Saint Bartholomew. Saint Bartholomew, identified as Nathanael in the Gospels, was introduced to Jesus by Philip, and his sincerity was quickly recognized by Christ, who called him a true Israelite in whom there is no deceit. This encounter changed his life, and Bartholomew became one of the 12 apostles, dedicating himself to preaching the gospel. His ministry took him to regions like India and Armenia, where he carried the message of Christ with courage and determination. Bartholomew shows us that genuine faith requires sincerity of heart, serving as a bridge to an authentic commitment to God. The martyrdom of Saint Bartholomew is known as one of the most brutal among the apostles, revealing the severity of the persecutions faced by early Christians. He was flayed alive and subsequently beheaded for refusing to renounce his faith while preaching in Armenia. This extreme suffering is a testament to his unconditional love for Christ and his conviction that the truth of the gospel was worth any sacrifice. For today's Christians, Bartholomew's martyrdom serves as a powerful witness that true faith often comes at a high price. Saint Bartholomew's death was not in vain. It strengthened the faith of those who followed him and left a legacy that has endured through the century. The image of a man who endured the most brutal martyrdom without ever abandoning his mission inspires us to reflect on how much we are willing to sacrifice in the name of our beliefs. Now we move on to the story of Saint Thomas, whose journey was marked by doubts and challenges, but ultimately led to a faith that drove him to witness the gospel to the ends of the East. Saint Thomas. Saint Thomas, often remembered as the doubting apostle, plays a crucial role in the story of the 12 apostles. His initial doubt about Christ's resurrection, which was only resolved when he touched the Lord's wounds, has become a symbol for those who seek proof before believing. But that same doubt was the starting point for an unshakable faith. After that transformative encounter, Thomas embarked on a missionary journey that took him to India, where he fervently preached the gospel. He teaches us that faith can be born from uncertainty, and that sincere questioning can lead to deeper conviction. The martyrdom of Saint Thomas is yet another testimony, courage and dedication. During his mission in India, he faced resistance from local authorities who saw him as a threat to the status quo. Eventually, he was attacked and killed by spears while preaching the word of God. This violent end reveals the intensity of his commitment to the mission of evangelizing, even in distant and hostile land. For today's Christians, the example of Saint Thomas is a powerful reminder: true faith is not based on the absence of doubt, but on overcoming it and being willing to go wherever God sends us. Saint Thomas's story challenges the common perception that faith is simple and free of conflict. He proves that doubt is not the enemy of faith, but can be the path to a stronger and more vibrant belief. His testimony among Christian martyrs inspires all of us to persevere, even when facing internal and external challenges. Next, we'll explore the life of Saint Matthew, the apostle who transformed his former life as a tax collector into a journey of faith and sacrifice for the gospel. 9. Saint Matthew. Saint Matthew, before being called by Christ, was a tax collector, a profession despised among Jews since many of those in it were seen as traitors and corrupt. However, when Jesus invited him to follow him, Matthew left everything behind without hesitation, demonstrating how an open heart to conversion can be transformed by God's grace. He would later become the author of the first gospel, offering a unique perspective on Christ's life and teachings. St. Matthew's story reminds us that no one is beyond the reach of God's call, regardless of their past. The martyrdom of St. Matthew is a testimony to his complete dedication to the mission of evangelizing. He preached the gospel in several regions, particularly in Ethiopia, where, during a mass, he was attacked and killed by those who rejected his message. Even in the face of threats and persecution, Matthew remained faithful to the end, showing that true faith does not waver in the face of difficulty. His life and death inspire us to reflect on how we handle the challenges that can arise when we decide to live according to gospel values. St. Matthew's journey reveals the depth of sincere conversion, where someone once seen as a sinner becomes one of the greatest proclaimers of Christ's message. His testimony challenges us to see beyond appearances and believe in the power of divine grace that can transform even the hardest hearts. Now we'll learn about St. James, the son of Alphaeus, whose discreet yet essential role in the early church also ended in martyrdom, reinforcing the power of witnessing faith. St. James, the son of Alphaeus. St. James, the son of Alphaeus, also known as James the Less, was one of the apostles whose life, although less detailed in the Gospels, played a fundamental role in the early church. He is often mentioned as the leader of the Christian community in Jerusalem, one of the vital centers of Christianity in the years following Christ's resurrection. His leadership was marked by humility and devotion to prayer, earning recognition for his life of deep holiness and zeal for faith. James the Less is an example of how discreet service far from the spotlight can have a lasting impact on God's kingdom. His martyrdom took place while he was evangelizing in Persia, where he was crucified. This form of death, similar to Christ's, shows James's willingness to follow in the footsteps of the Master. He was one of the apostles who, although not prominently featured in historical records, remained steadfast in his mission, facing death with courage and unshakable faith. James the Less teaches us that true greatness in God's kingdom doesn't depend on visibility or recognition, but on silent and constant faithfulness. The life and sacrifice of St. James, the son of Alphaeus, are reminders that even in the most challenging and seemingly thankless missions, surrendering to God is always rewarded. His steadfastness in witnessing the gospel to the end reflects the essence of early Christianity, where love for Christ was greater than any fear or threat. Now let's discover the story of St. Simon, the apostle, who, with his zealous fervor, also faced a brutal end in the name of his faith.
Embark on a spiritual journey with our new ebook, 50 Saints, Stories and Prayers for Divine Intervention. This inspiring collection delves into the lives of 50 revered saints, offering their powerful stories and heartfelt prayers to guide you towards divine intervention. Perfect for personal reflection or group study, this ebook is a must-have for every devout Catholic. Enhance your faith and discover the strength of these saintly figures. Find the download link in the pinned comment below.
Saint Simon. Saint Simon, known as Simon the Zealot, was given this name due to his fervent dedication to Jewish law before following Christ. He was part of a movement that fought against Roman domination, but upon meeting Jesus, he transformed his zeal into an unwavering commitment to God's kingdom. As an apostle, Simon took the gospel to various regions, preaching with passion and energy. His story reminds us that regardless of our past or previous convictions, we can redirect our strengths to fully and truly serve God. The martyrdom of Saint Simon highlights his steadfastness in remaining faithful until the end. He was sawn in half, one of the most brutal forms of execution, while evangelizing in pagan lands. Even in the face of such a cruel death, his faith remained unshakable, demonstrating that, for him, Christ's message was worth any sacrifice. This extreme testimony prompts us to reflect. How far are we willing to go in our own faith journey? St. Simon challenges us to live with a zeal that cannot be shaken, no matter the trials and difficulties we may face. St. Simon's dedication and martyrdom show that true faith is not limited to words, but manifests in radical actions and choices. His life was an example that, with a heart and mind focused on God, it's possible to transform human fervor into spiritual zeal. Now, we turn to Saint Jude Thaddius, whose role as the intercessor for impossible causes and his courage in martyrdom complete this picture of total surrender to the service of Saint Jude Thaddius. Saint Jude Thaddius, also known as the Saint of Impossible Causes, was one of the 12 apostles and a cousin of Jesus. He is mentioned as the author of the Epistle of Jude, a brief letter filled with wisdom and exhortations for Christians to stand firm in faith, even in times of crisis. His name is often associated with moments of despair, as many believers turn to his intercession in seemingly hopeless situations. Popular devotion to Saint Jude Thaddius reminds us that true faith doesn't lose hope, even when everything seems lost. The martyrdom of Saint Jude Thaddius occurred during his evangelizing mission in Persia, where he and Saint Simon faced strong resistance while preaching the gospel. Jude Thaddius was beaten to death with a club, a heavy and blunt weapon used as a symbol of his executioner's attempt to silence his voice. However, his message resonated even more strongly after his death, fueling the faith of many. The martyrdom of Saint Jude serves as a powerful reminder that Christian faith does not bow to threats and instead transforms pain into a living testimony of unwavering hope. The legacy of Saint Jude Thaddius continues to inspire millions of believers worldwide, showing that even in the darkest moments, possible to find light. His story closes the cycle of sacrifice among the 12 apostles, all of whom were willing to give their lives for the cause of the gospel. And it is with this spirit of total surrender that we conclude our journey through the apostles and their martyrdom, understanding how these first followers of Christ shaped the history of the church and paved the way for all of us. Did you notice what drove these men to give their lives for Christ? They understood that true faith is not measured by comfort, by the sacrifice we're willing to make for. Now, the question remains, how far would you be willing to go for your faith? How about starting to reflect more on what you can do to live this faith more intensely and authentically? The example of the apostles is not just history. It can be a guide for our daily choices. If you want to keep learning and diving deeper into topics like this, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications. There's much more content coming, and each video could be a new opportunity for you to strengthen your faith and discover what it means to live Christianity in a radical and transformative way.